Morning, Trainiacs. As I am putting together the bike foundations, how to get established biking for beginner triathletes book, I'm starting to think about what were the biggest issues that I had as I was learning triathlon, and one of which is fading towards the end of the bike, being basically done in the race before you've even started the run. And what I've come up with are 5 different things that triathletes can do to make sure that regardless of distance of race, be it sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, Ironman, you have the ability to maintain your speed, your pace from the start to the end of the bike so that you can get to the run and actually do well. We're gonna see if I can do well in a brick workout myself. Fairly tired. Didn't get a good sleep. Nope. I'm done. 4 weeks of on training, the last 3 of those being keto, bad sleep, my HRV is in the tank. You all ask, like, how do you keep going day after day? I give. Today's the day. That's it. Nope. I'll talk about that another day. It ain't all peaches and PBs every single day around here. I'm sorry, folks. No, Trainiacs. That did not go well. I am suffering right now. I don't know what it is, but not performing super well in many workouts at the moment. Now, let's talk about how to work out really well by Taren, who just had some really bad workouts. Ding! So one of the most common things that new triathletes experience when they start taking up the sport is the feeling of, how can I possibly go that long, that far? Well, actually, humans have evolved over tens of thousands of years to be able to go at a long distance for hours and hours on end at a slow pace. So endurance isn't the problem. Strength endurance, the ability to endure at a fast pace, that's the problem. Frankly, endurance is really easy to build. In both the 2014 and 2017 marathon swims that I did, I spent probably 6 or 7 months just building the strength to be able to train and do these long 27 and 37 kilometer marathon swims. And then it wasn't until the last 2 months to 10 weeks that I went from like a long swim being a 4.5K swim to a 6K to a 7K to a 9K to a 15K. And after that, it was like, boom, done, easy. But it's building the structure and the stability that takes a long time to go at a race pace, an elevated pace for a long period of time. Endurance is easy, I guarantee it. So these are the 5 ways that you build the muscular endurance to be able to go for a long period of time at a faster pace. The first thing that you've got to do, as I talk about this all the time, you have to build up to an overdistance. And for example, on the bike portion of training for a sprint, you've got to build yourself up to a 30 to 35K long bike. On an Olympic, we're talking like a 60K bike. On a half Ironman, we're talking about a 110, 115K bike. On a Ironman, we're talking about a 5.5 hour bike. You don't necessarily have to bike longer than the 180K, but you have to get your body to the point that you can stay at a nice low hum, and these long endurance rides, runs should be at a low intensity, and that'll build your body's ability to just chug a chug and chug a chug and chug a chug and chug a chug, and then endurance is done. Check. easy. So that's cardiovascular, that's central endurance. But what about these things, making these things pump constantly? Well, that's where strength endurance, muscular endurance comes in. And as far as the bike is concerned, one of the best ways to do that is with low cadence sets. So that's doing progressively longer and longer periods of time, starting in the base building phase of the season around 2 to 3 minutes at 50 to 80 cadence. Gradually, what you end up doing is increasing the amount of time that you're spending at that low cadence and spending more time at even lower cadences, like in the 50 to 70 kind of range, in the 50 to 60 kind of range. And this places a huge amount of load and stress on your system, and it makes your muscles really durable so that they can do that strength, endurance, repetition over, I don't know why I'm doing that. It can do that muscular endurance under load and tension for a long period of time. We do a ton of that on teamtrainiac.com, but it has to be structured in a certain way because it's very hard on your joints. So we gradually build up and we gradually feather it in and out of certain workouts. Now, next thing you've got to do is your top end work, your VO2 max kind of work. There was a study done of about 61 Ironman athletes that tried to determine what were the physiological factors that determined the outcome of whether an athlete did poorly or very well in the Ironman. There are two things that popped out. Number one, the ability to oxidize fat, which can be from low carb dieting or just from training a lot. And the second was a high VO2 max, a high ability to push those hard top ends. Now, my belief is that if you can really push those extreme top ends, those really hard workouts that are short, on teamtrainiac.com, we have a lot of workouts that are 30-minute bike workouts, but when you go to that super intense level, all of a sudden when you bring it back down to just a race pace, all of a sudden that race pace feels quite easy, very manageable. So going at that race pace mentally is so much easier, and physically it feels easier. Your perception of pain is a lot more dissipated. So that's going to get you to the end of the race much easier. Fourth thing is that you have to be comfortable in the aero position. Basic thing is not to get too aerodynamic and worry about getting as low and slammed as possible. You want to get as comfortable as possible first and foremost, and then gradually, after being comfortable and building comfort over a period of 2, 3, 4 months, then maybe you bring your elbow pads in maybe 1/4 of an inch. Then maybe you lower your stem maybe 1/4 of an inch. And over a period of years, you can become aerodynamic. But first, comfort is paramount, because you know what's not aerodynamic? Getting out of the saddle or shifting around because you're not comfortable in that aero position. If you're not comfortable in that aero position, by the end of the bike, your body is just going to be fighting you because it's starting to fail, because it's in a compromised position trying to put out race efforts, and it's not going to be able to do that because it's getting taxed beyond its level of comfort. This is where cramps come in, and this is where fading comes in. The final thing that you've got to dial in is your nutrition. If you're not fueling yourself with the proper amount of electrolytes, carbs, fat, whatever it might be, just general calories, if you aren't taking that in the right amounts, in the right times, you aren't going to have a good race no matter what your training is. So for that, what I would recommend is you go to triathlontaren.com/triathlon nutrition guide. I haven't talked about that in a while, but that is a full, you put in your race distance, your race estimated time, how much you weigh, and it's going to spit out exactly how many calories you personally need to replenish. Forget about all this, like things on packages that just say, take one every 30 minutes. Well, is that one every 30 minutes for somebody who's 110 pounds or somebody that's 210 pounds? Very, very different thing. This is going to be for you. So with those 5 things, that's essentially the cornerstones of biking really well. For the first 8 years in triathlon, I did not bike more than really twice a week. One long overdistance ride, one hard ride. I then nailed the nutrition. I made sure I was comfortable in the saddle. And over the last couple of years, I found that that muscular low cadence work has played a huge role in taking my times from a 2:46 half Ironman down to a 2:18 in just a couple of years without bashing my brains out with hours and hours and thousands of miles in the saddle. So go check out triathlontaren.com/triathlon nutrition guide, dial in your nutrition, bike a lot, and stick with these 5 key pillars. You'll do well on race day. All right, that is all. I am going to go sulk about that workout. They'll be better. Just wasn't a good one today. Later, Trainiacs.